Up and running. Yep. Okay, perfect. Then back to the slides. And yeah, after a quick introduction of the speakers, just 2 words on who we are from LPDG. We are a IT consulting company delivering, let's say, full lifecycle projects, either classical or agile. We have branches in Germany with roughly 60 people, and also India with around about 60 people, and are about to set up business in Abu Dhabi and Dubai right now, and also have kickstarted an LPDG branch in the US last year. Basically, as you can see here, we are, let's say, divided into, whether you call it line of business or departments, or we call it communities. It doesn't matter, but from the idea, we cover topics around business intelligence and analytics, where we have a very strong SAP footprint, of course. We do big data and data science strategy advisory. And this is also the, let's say, community from which Kiro and myself are from. It's called Process Intelligence and Automation, where we are also then hosting kind of the MuleSoft solution for our integration and automation projects. And last but not least, we also do ERP core solution and maintenance. That's just a little bit about the background, what we are doing on a daily basis. And now let's get started with the content of this project. So as I said, we are talking about a customer based in the US, in Texas, in Dallas, Texas. They are basically from the metering industry, and they were employing quite a lot of people, let's say, in the back office to manually process bills, especially energy bills. So the process when we first engaged with this customer looked as is depicted over here. So you have, on the one hand, you have energy providers delivering energy to all kinds of, let's say, buildings, properties, flats, larger building complexes, etc. On top of which you usually have a property management company who runs the building, kind of. Now, so these companies were our clients' customers. So our client provided a service to these property management companies of handling their energy bills. Because why is this of interest? In the US, it seems to be the case that a lot of bills are still running, or also bills handling is still running on paper. So it's, let's say, a very time-consuming business, which is why there is a high interest of somehow getting this done. So there is a market, let's say, for bills handling. So our client provided this service to these property management companies, which translated on a monthly base for our client to handle roughly 7,500 bills, out of which roughly 50% are so-called common area bills, right? So this is all the energy consumption happening, let's say, outside your unit. And then, of course, you have your personal unit bill. These are 2 different types of bills. And those needed to be handled, and the client did this. And just an additional comment, and this is mostly done via print and mail services, meaning the bills get printed, they get mailed to the recipient, who then somehow cash in the amount that they owe. What our customer did is he used 2 different third parties to somehow offer the service that he offered to the property management company. So on the one hand, there was a third party involved who literally opened the envelopes and scanned the bills inside the envelopes. So in a sense, they digitized the paper in the first step and provided the digitized PDF to be downloaded on an FTP server. Our client then involved a second third party who sort of downloaded the bills and then entered both the unit bills and the common bills into a cloud-based kind of energy or ERP system for the energy sector, which is called Energy Cap. So this data entry then was manual, of course. And then on the other hand, our client had to somehow go into Energy Cap and see which bills have been keyed in and double check with, let's say, the original papers if everything has been done correctly. Then, as you can imagine, this process is slow. It's error prone, right? People do make mistakes when they type in bills. They key either the address wrong or the apartment number or the amount due or whatever is on this bill could potentially go wrong. And of course, what was a big issue is that this process took so long in some instances that by the time that the data that was on the bills was available to our client in Energy Cap, they already had to pay a late fee, which they had to somehow cover because in the first place, they offered the service to the property management companies to handle those bills in time. And this was, of course, as you can imagine, a big pain point for our client. And he wanted, in a sense, to get rid of this pain by asking the question, can this somehow be automated, right? Or is there any way to do this in a digital automated way so that we can speed up this process, that we are maybe not need to rely on those third parties, that we can get the ownership back of what is happening here. And of course, save on the late fees and then provide a way better service to our client. Just to give you a glimpse of how these builds look like, what type of builds are we talking about? Here you can see a handful of examples how builds look like. So you have on the left side, let's say, a very condensed bill holding, let's say, the most necessary data, right? Like the amount due and then, I don't know, your energy consumption and the address and a little bit of advertisement left and right. You have quite sophisticated bills in the middle with very detailed tables, how the total balance that you are owing has been set up. And then apart from that, you also sometimes just have reminders or letters that remind people that there is still an open bill that needs to be handled. So it's actually not a bill, it's just like a notification to a bill, right? So this is just to give you a glimpse on the variety of what is happening in the background in after these documents got scanned and what data needed to be keyed into Energy Cap. So the vision of our customer was, would it be somehow possible to craft a solution where we have different external customers, which we offer to handle their bills, and these customers provide their bills in their own PO boxes, and our solution or our supposed solution grabs those PDFs, reads the data, automatically puts them into Energy Cap, and only if something, let's say, that let's say an exception happens, something that is not in the predefined process, or some numbers do not match, an address cannot be found, the name of a customer is not there, whatever it is, only those few exceptions are sort of diverted out of the solution to, let's say, a manual check or inspection by still an employee who then, in a sense, fixes the problem or takes care of this exception and then keeps on manually keying in the data. Of course, the ultimate goal would be to have the largest fraction of bills, of course, somehow had to be, let's say, in the upper path. But knowing that right now 100% is manual and knowing the problems connected to this, in a sense, literally every percentage that you can redivert into this automated path would be somehow of help. So this was the vision. And then our customer continued and said, let's suppose we have the solution. What I could then do is, of course, I can, of course, handle my own PO boxes, but I could also then like sell this, of course, to other clients, right? Instead of like paying a third party who does the job for me, if I have an automated solution that is scalable, I could just offer this entire bills handling service to way more companies, which is why I need a solution that is somehow scalable. It needs to be possible for new customers to be integrated into this solution. But if that would be possible, right, I could turn a costly outsourced service for which I'm paying right now actually into an in-house revenue generating business. So this was, let's say, the problem statement from our customer. And this is what we've been working on since January. There is, since May, a solution up and running who takes care of the orange bubbles. So let's say the in-house clients' PO boxes. And we are just about with the solution to, let's say, go for the first blue bubble of the first customer, external customer, to put his PDFs through the solution. And how we went about this, for this one, I will hand over to my colleague Kiru.
Thanks, Christian. So when we approached this problem that Christian explained about in the previous slides, we kind of divided the challenges into these three categories that you see on the slide. So the first and foremost was the quality of the scans, because we are relying on this third party to scan the PDFs and give us, there were, so to say, quite a varying variety of scans. So there were some which was very low quality, and there was also some very nice scans. And then the next big problem was the different, formats of the bills, which also saw in one of the slides earlier. So there was handwritten text in some, there was different complex tables in some of the bills. So there was no uniform format across the bill. So it was very, very vendor dependent. And there were also very varying types of bills. So we already talked about common bills and unit bills. There was also notices, which informs about bill payment deadlines and so on. And there were also so-called consolidated bills, because some vendors send bills for multiple units together as one single huge PDF. So this is also something that our solution has to handle. Yeah. And then the last and the most important challenge was the data accuracy or the data validation. How do we know that the extracted data is correct? Because it's very easy to, for example, identify an 0 as an 8 or as 1 as a 7, right? So how, because it also is doubly important in this particular use case, because it's handling money and we are also actually paying the bills as the last step. So it would be very expensive if we misidentify the data. So this was basically some of the challenge groups that we had before approaching this problem. And for the solution, in order to handle all these, we divided into two parts. So one is we need to have something for the document processing, as in extracting the data from the PDFs. And this tool that we would select for this part must be resilient to all those format changes that we saw. So first of all, it must be able to handle the various formats that we have now. But if in future a format changes, or if we want to introduce a new format, there must not be too much maintenance in order to cater to this new format. So that was one of the biggest requirements for the document processing part. And then we need an automation tool in order to use the extracted data, validate it, and then put it into the end destination system, which is the energy cap. And for this tool, we wanted something that would offer us creation of reusable services, not just a very specific tool just for this particular use case, but a tool which is broad and open, which would not just cater to this use case, but also to the future automation use cases that the customer might have. That was one big requirement. And also, what was important was we also need a sort of orchestration, right? Because we need to integrate this document processing tool or solution that we would use into the automation tool. Plus, we would also want monitoring in order to see how well our solution is doing and to also do a bit of maintenance over there. So these were our main requirements for the document processing part plus the automation tool. And this is what we went for at the end. Yeah, so this is our solution. I would start from the middle because MuleSoft was the automation tool that we went for. MuleSoft acts as the backbone of this entire solution, and it kind of orchestrates all the different tools that you see on the left hand side in order to kind of automate the solution end to end. Right. I would quickly take you through the overall solution. So the part where the third party scans the PDFs and digitizes them still remains as such. So MuleSoft takes the PDFs from the FTP after they have been digitized and sends it to as Azure Form Recognizer. Yeah, the Azure Form Recognizer service helps us to convert the scanned PDF into text so that we can extract further information. After this text is extracted, we pass, or MuleSoft passes it again to an OpenAI API, which then extracts all the needed information for us, like the account number, the account name, the address, service address, and then the various data, the total amount, the amount, previous balance, and so on and so on. And all this is extracted using prompts from the OpenAI API. And once we get this information, we have a sort of validation over here where we discussed with the customer and then we came up with a set of rules that would help us know whether the extracted data was correct or not. For example, the previous balance plus the current charges must plus, I don't know, tax must be equal to the total amount and so on. So we came up with this predefined set of rules, and we use this rules in order to validate whether the extracted data is correct or not. And depending on the result of this validation, if the validation passes, then MuleSoft calls directly EnergyCap APIs in order to create the bill over there in EnergyCap. But if in case the validation fails, then it would go to a custom UI, which we built using Streamlit, which you see as the last swim lane over here in the diagram. And in the Streamlit UI, the customer would be able to see a preview of the PDF and the data that was extracted so that he can correct if there was some incorrect extraction, and then he can key in then the build in EnergyCap. So this was the whole flow where MuleSoft was a central part, and it orchestrated all the different technologies back and forth in order to form a completely end-to-end automated solution. Yeah. So why we chose MuleSoft is because, as I explained earlier, we do not want to create a very, very tight monolithic solution, which was, catering just for this particular use case. But we want to create something, modular and reusable. Because our vision, if you remember, that Christian showed, is that not to just automate this process in-house, but to make this as a service which we could offer to other customers. So it must be scalable, reusable, and it must be easy to, for example, integrate a new customer who might not have exactly the same 100% requirements that we automated now, but maybe 80 or 90% the same, right? So MuleSoft makes it easy in order to integrate such customers. And then we also have with MuleSoft monitoring as well, so that we can have some level of insights into how the whole solution is doing, and we can monitor and maintain it. Plus, the another important part was the MuleSoft automation package that we bought for this customer. Does not just include AnyPoint, but it also includes RPA and Composer. And these two kind of empower the whole organization to build their own automations because of their low code, no code capabilities. And that was one of the major reasons as well, because we also wanted something that would cater to the future automation use cases as well. And this is again the recap of all the requirements that we saw before. And with the combination of OpenAI for the document processing part and MuleSoft for the automation part, we were able to check all the requirements that were defined before. Yeah. And finally, as a concluding sentence, now the customer, as Christian already explained, is already at a stage of integrating his first external customer, where he offers this bill pays as a service. So he's now able to monetize in-house time-consuming task now as a service. Yeah, that is basically the end of our presentation. So feel free to ask questions either in the Q&A, or you can also unmute yourself and ask the questions if there are any.
Hi guys, I hope you can hear me. Here is Peter from Germany. Actually, I posted those questions in the chat as well. But with this like the latest feature of MuleSoft being this built-in document recognition tool, I think it's called IDP. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would it be also an option to maybe like reduce the complexity?
Yes, totally. So we began this project in January. So at that time, IDP was not GA. So that is why this was not, part of consideration when we went for the solution selection. But right now, with IDP plus also Einstein, which would become, I think, GA sometime in January, this would cater to our use case completely. Yes. And it would
Okay,
also,
because it,
sorry, go on.
no, my apologies, I stopped you.
No worries. No, I was just about to say that using IDP plus Einstein here in this architecture would simplify a lot of steps. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, I have personally like no direct experience with this IDP, if it is GA, but really applicable. But it would be interesting to see, how you can train your own template and, the type of the document. But yeah, that would be interesting. And then also, just out of curiosity, what is your like average success rate? I mean, how much reduction of the manual work can you achieve with
Yeah.
your current implementation?
So we thought when we did the initial tests, when we fired in the first, let's say, round of PDFs, I don't know, 50 or 100, just to see what the solution spit out, kind of, we thought we can make it up to 70%. But then after fine tuning left and right and gaining experience on how to categorize and identify all those document types, and then of course better to know how to handle them. Right now, I think we are roughly somewhere 95%, I would say.
Nice.
So
This is very cool.
it's I don't know, on a daily base, we run between, I don't know, 100 and 700 PDFs on a daily base, Monday to Friday, because this is when this Trustmark Bank provides zip files to download in which these PDFs are. So this varies a lot, but the statistics show, I don't know, we have very little exceptions. It turned out to be better than we thought, to be honest. So yeah, so it's quite high. It's not 100%, of course, right? There's especially the notifications and handwritten stuff, and then sometimes it's a notification plus a bill, so there's always something that doesn't fit the process. But gut feeling is 95%.
Perfect. I mean, congratulations, that one. It's a very nice project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. Any further questions? Just maybe unmute yourself if that's fine for you. Otherwise, just drop the question in the Q&A part.
I see no further questions. And I think
Yes, I see.
5 minutes over the time.
Okay. I mean, if there are no further questions, then thanks everybody for joining. And we hope that this was interesting for you. And have a great day ahead.